Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive.
Uh-huh.
We love taking a look at all sorts of different sources, and today we're tackling highway driving.
Yeah, highway driving, it's something most of us do pretty regularly, but I think there's always something new to learn.
Exactly, and we found two really interesting sources for this one. A step-by-step video tutorial, which is super practical.
Oh, yeah, those can be so helpful, especially for visual learners.
Totally, and then we've got this whole treasure trove of tips from experienced drivers on like a forum.
Ah, the wisdom of the crowds. I love it.
Right, so we're going to try to distill all that down into some pure highway wisdom.
I'm excited to see what we find.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay, so first things first, merging.
Ah, yes, the merging lane, the gateway to the highway.
The video instructor is super adamant about matching highway speed before you even hit the merge lane.
Makes sense. You don't want to be a rolling roadblock.
Exactly, and the on-ramp, it's your acceleration runway.
Perfect analogy. It gives you that space to build up speed and merge smoothly.
Speaking of smooth merging, one of the drivers in the forum had this brilliant analogy. They compared merging onto a highway to a small stream joining a river.
Oh, I love that it should blend seamlessly, not disrupt the entire flow.
Right, and I think that's such a great visual for understanding how our actions, even something as simple as merging it, affects everyone else on the road.
Absolutely. It's all about that interconnectedness on the highway.
Okay, so we've mastered merging now. Let's talk about exiting.
Exiting gracefully, another crucial highway skill.
The video breaks it down into this really clear sequence signal. Early, maintain your speed on the highway, and then adjust for the exit ramp.
It's all about timing, and I think that's where a lot of drivers go wrong. They slow down way too early on the highway itself.
Oh yeah, that can be so dangerous. It creates this sudden deceleration that catches everyone off guard.
Exactly. And the instructor in the video, he uses the design of those corkscrew-shaped exits to illustrate this point.
Oh yeah, those ones that kind of spiral down.
Exactly. He said they're intentionally designed to slow traffic down naturally as you go.
It's like built-in safety, but it only works if you play your part.
Exactly. Follow the flow and trust the design.
Okay, now let's get into what I think are the real danger zones of highway driving lane changes and blind spots.
Oh, yeah, those are the hard stoppers.
Both sources are super serious about mirror and blind spot checks. It's not just a rule, it's about anticipating the unexpected.
And you know what really drove that point home for me? There's this story in the video about the instructor encountering a car crossing a solid white line during a lane change.
Oh my gosh, that's terrifying.
Totally illegal, incredibly dangerous, and it just proves that you can never be too careful.
And speaking of blind spots, one of the drivers in the forum brought up motorcycles.
Oh, yeah, they're so much harder to see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we need to be extra vigilant when we're changing lanes or merging.
It's a shared responsibility to look out for each other, especially when there are vehicles of different sizes on the road.
Okay, so now for a topic that sparked some serious debate in the forum, the left lane.
Ah, the left lane, the fast lane, the passing lane. Some might even call it the crime lane.
Right. It's the source of so much highway controversy.
So the big question is it for passing only, or are there other factors that come into play?
Because I know some people feel very strongly that it's a passing lane only.
And others say, hey, sometimes you need to stay in that lane for other reasons.
Exactly. So it's interesting to see those different perspectives, and I think it highlights the importance of being aware of different driving cultures and regional variations.
Absolutely. What might be considered rude or aggressive in one place might be perfectly normal in another.
And it's about reading the situation, being aware of the traffic around you, and adjusting your behavior accordingly.
So the rule might have to bend to the reality of the road sometimes.
Okay, so one last thing before you move on to part two, I just
Okay.
have to ask about this. Did you see the thread about flashing headlights?
Oh, yeah, that was a fascinating one. Flashing headlights, the unofficial language of the highway.
Right. I mean, I've always known it as a way to warn people about speed traps.
Yeah, that's the classic, but apparently it can have all sorts of different meanings.
Like what?
Well, some people use it to warn about hazards ahead, like debris in the road or a stalled car.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then others use it as a way of saying, hey, you go ahead and merge.
So it's like this secret code that everyone's supposed to know.
It is, but it's not always reliable, so it's best to stick to clear legal signals whenever possible.
Good point. It's like the highway whisperer's secret handshake, but maybe not always the safest way to communicate.
Exactly. Sometimes a good old-fashioned turn signal is the best way to get your message across.
Okay, so that's a wrap for part one of our highway deep dive. We've covered so much ground already, from merging and exiting to blind spots and the mysteries of the left lane.
We even delved into the secret language of flashing headlights.
But there's so much more to explore, so make sure you join us for part 2, where we'll dive even deeper into the art of highway driving.
We'll be talking about anticipating the actions of other drivers, developing that highway intuition, and avoiding those common mistakes that can lead to accidents.
So buckle up and get ready for another exciting ride on the highway of knowledge.
See you there.
Bye for now. All right, so we're back for part 2 of our highway deep dive. We ended on this note of like flashing headlights and secret signals.
For the unspoken language of the highway.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that ties in really well with something the video instructor emphasized, which is observation, like really seeing what's happening around you.
It's not just about glancing in your mirrors, it's about actively looking for clues about what other drivers might do.
Yeah, and he even uses this phrase, tracking freeway signs, like being aware of upcoming exits and lane changes before you actually need them.
It's all about building that mental map of the road ahead.
Right, and that connects perfectly with something someone in the forum said about anticipating the actions of other drivers.
Like trying to predict what they're going to do before they do it.
Exactly. They were talking about looking for things like a car drifting in their lane or checking their mirrors multiple times.
It's almost like they're giving you a little warning signal.
Right, and that gives you those precious few seconds to react.
It's about being proactive instead of reactive.
You know what it reminds me of? That moment in the video where the instructor suddenly encounters a car crossing the solid white line, like totally out of nowhere.
I remember that I was on the edge of my seat.
Me too. And he was so calm about it, like he was almost expecting it.
That's what good observation and anticipation can do for you. It helps you stay prepared for anything.
Even the totally unexpected.
Exactly. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about something that often trips up new drivers merging onto a highway with multiple lanes already moving at speed.
Okay, so you're on that on-ramp, and you've got cars whizzing by on both sides.
It can be intimidating, for sure, but the video instructor breaks it down really well.
What's the key?
Matching the speed of the flow of traffic before you merge.
So find a gap where you can blend in seamlessly.
Exactly like that stream joining a river.
Oh, and he makes a really interesting point about using your left mirror in these situations, especially when traffic is moving slowly.
It's not just about checking your blind spot, it's about making sure the car in the lane you're merging into sees you.
Right, because they might not be expecting someone to come zipping up from behind.
Exactly. It's about double-checking that they're giving you space.
So it's like confirming that they're aware of your presence.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we've talked about looking to the sides in our mirrors, but the video also emphasizes the importance of looking ahead, not just at the car directly in front of you.
Right, because on the highway, things can change so quickly.
Exactly. You need that long-range vision.
To spot brake lights, sudden lane, changes any potential hazards.
And the further ahead you look, the more time you have to react smoothly.
So like giving your brain a head start.
Exactly. You're not just reacting to what's happening right in front of you. You're anticipating what might happen down the road.
And it's amazing how much one little mistake or one sudden move can affect everyone else on the highway.
It's like a chain reaction. Someone slams on their brakes and suddenly everyone behind them is hitting their brakes too.
Someone in the forum called it a traffic shockwave.
I love that it really captures how interconnected everything is.
Right, so it's even more important to maintain a consistent speed and try to go with the flow of traffic.
That's one of the best ways to prevent those sudden disruptions.
But of course, maintaining a consistent speed doesn't mean being glued to your cruise control.
Exactly. You still need to be adjusting to the changing conditions around you.
Right, sometimes you need to speed up a little, sometimes you need to slow down.
Yeah.
It's all about finding that balance.
And that's where that highway intuition we talked about earlier comes in.
It's like developing a sixth sense for the road.
Knowing when to speed up, when to slow down, when to change lanes.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about anticipating what other drivers might do, but what about our own behavior? What are some common mistakes that we make on the highway?
Well, one of the big ones is what we call tunnel vision.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. It's like you get so focused on the car in front of you that you forget to look around.
Exactly. You lose sight of the bigger picture.
And that can be really dangerous because you're not prepared for sudden changes in traffic flow.
So how do we break out of that tunnel vision?
Well, the key is to make a conscious effort to look beyond the car in front of you.
Check your mirrors regularly, look ahead to see what's coming, and be aware of your peripheral vision.
It's almost like we need to train ourselves to see the highway in 3D.
That's a great way to put it, instead of just that straight line in front of you.
Okay, so tunnel vision is definitely a big one. What else?
Failing to signal properly.
Oh yeah, I see that all the time. People just don't use their turn signals.
Or they use them at the last second, which doesn't give anyone enough time to react.
And someone in the forum made a really interesting point about turn signals.
What was that?
They said, it's not just about following the rules. It's about showing respect for the other drivers around you
Oh, I love that it's about communicating your intentions clearly.
so that everyone can make safe decisions.
Exactly. It's like we're all in this dance together, and the turn signals are our way of saying, hey, I'm about to make this move.
Okay, so we've got tunnel vision, improper signaling. What
Oh,
else?
this one's a biggie tailgating.
Ugh. I hate it when people ride my bumper.
It's so dangerous, and it doesn't actually get you anywhere faster.
Right, you end up having to brake more often because you're constantly adjusting your speed.
So just give yourself plenty of space. It's not worth the risk.
Okay, so tailgating is a no-no. What else should we avoid?
Oh, I think it's important to talk about mindset.
Mindset.
Yeah, like approaching highway driving with a calm and focused attitude.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's easy to get stressed out, especially in heavy traffic.
Exactly. So take a few deep breaths, focus on your driving, and avoid distractions.
No texting, no fiddling with the radio, just your full attention on the road.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's a wrap for part 2. We've talked about developing that all-important highway intuition,
We've talked about breaking out of tunnel vision
the importance of signaling properly,
and the dangers of tailgating.
and of course, maintaining a calm and focused mindset.
Anything else we should add?
I think you covered it beautifully.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground in this highway deep dive.
Hmm.
You know, all these driving techniques and mental strategies.
Really trying to level up our highway game.
Exactly.
Mhm.
But you know what else I think is super important? Being prepared.
Oh, absolutely. Preparation is key, especially when you're out there on the open road.
Totally. And one of the first things both sources mentioned is planning your route.
Before you even hit the highway.
Exactly. Like knowing where you're going and what exits to take.
It sounds so basic, but it can really make a difference.
Oh, for sure. It helps you avoid those last-minute lane changes or missed exits.
Which can be super dangerous.
Totally. And these days with GPS and traffic apps, it's so easy to plan ahead.
It's like having a co-pilot in your pocket.
Okay, so we've got our route planned. What else do we need to be prepared for?
Well, the driver forum had some interesting discussions about those driver assistance features.
You mean like adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist?
Exactly. All those fancy bells and whistles.
Yeah, some people love them. Some people are a little wary.
Right, and I think the key takeaway is that they're meant to assist the driver, not replace them.
You're still in control.
Absolutely, and the video instructor makes a similar point. You still need to be fully engaged and ready to take over if necessary.
It's like having a really helpful co-pilot, but one who might occasionally need a little guidance.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got our route planned.
Right.
We're using technology wisely.
Okay.
What else?
This might seem obvious, but it's worth mentioning. Making sure your car's up for the challenge.
Oh yeah, a well-maintained car is a safe car.
Check your tire pressure, fluids, lights, all that good stuff.
And don't put off those maintenance appointments.
You know, I actually learned this lesson the hard way. A few years ago, I was driving on the highway and my tire blew out.
Oh no, that's scary.
It was terrifying. Luckily, I was able to pull over safely, but it definitely made me realize the importance of car maintenance.
A good reminder for all of us. Okay, so we've got a well-maintained car. Our route is planned. We're using technology responsibly. What else?
Okay, this one might sound a little extreme, but what about an emergency kit?
Oh, that's not extreme at all. It's actually a really smart idea.
Like, what kind of stuff should we have in there?
Well, basic first aid supplies, jumper cables, a flashlight, extra water and snacks.
Maybe even a blanket and some warm clothes.
Exactly, just in case you find yourself stranded or in a tricky situation.
It's like your highway safety net.
Precisely, you never know when you might need it.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot in this deep dive. Driving techniques, mental strategies being prepared.
Even a little bit about emergency preparedness.
But before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about mindset.
Mindset is so important when it comes to highway driving.
Absolutely. So, as we send our listeners off into the world of highways and byways, what are some final words of wisdom?
I would say approach highway driving with a sense of awareness, respect, and responsibility.
I love that awareness, responsibility.
Be aware of your surroundings, respect the other drivers around you, and take responsibility for your own actions.
We're all in this together, sharing the road.
Let's make it a safe and enjoyable experience for everyone.
Beautifully said to all our listeners out there. Happy driving. Stay safe, stay focused, and enjoy the ride.